The Square Ball Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the show. It's brought to you with Levi Solicitors, who will offer you a 10% discount on your legal fees at levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball. Dan, Michael and Moscow here to tell you about great legal services, great bunch of lads and lasses at Levi's.
Yep, 100%. I like chatting to them on the online
Booking.
Have you not been barred from it yet? No, never actually used a single one of their services.
I am
but
such an enthusiast.
Always on the online chat.
Yeah, I just like talking.
Just dial in and talk legal.
Hypothetical legal scenarios I like to run through. Completely wasting their time. But no, don't do that. Ring up and use some of the actual services.
Yes.
Like the wills, the probate, the conveyancing, for example.
Just three that just sprang to mind there.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Yeah, there is an online booking portal and you can do remote appointments as well, which means you can use them from across the UK. levisolicitors.co.uk/the Square Ball. Into part two then, and let's talk Arsenal playing them on April Fool's Day.
Maybe we can make fools of them. Hey?
That's the idea. If you haven't seen our...
That'll be after midday, won't it? So you can't.
Oh, no, that's true, yeah.
It's banned, isn't it?
Well, here's a stat for you. If you haven't yet checked out our Johnny Cooper episode, so Johnny is JR Cooper 26, who tweets out brilliant stuff. Gave out his wrong Twitter handle on the actual show itself, but we had a chat with him over the international...
You did?
Yeah.
You idiot.
I said Johnny Cooper 26. It's not. It's JR Cooper 26. Because I'm bad at my job.
No, but, well, you don't need to tell me that, I know.
Is this professional negligence? Do we need to get Levi's involved?
But Johnny came in and had a chat with us for an hour just about his journey through Football Manager stats. He was the guy who assigned Luke Varney pace of 15. Moscow, did you know that? He's now at Opta and is part responsible for the Opta Joe account. And he also just has loads of stats and a database about Leeds and comes up with brilliant facts every week. He has thrown a little bone my way, even though I got his Twitter handle wrong on that show. And he says, with regards to Arsenal, we've played more games at the Emirates without winning than at any other stadium in our history. 6 games.
7 games. Fast forward a week.
Well, we haven't beaten them in 20 years since that 3-2 at Highbury in May 2003. So that's like 13 games, including the FA Cup ties that we've had in between times. Although, weirdly, and obviously you know this, Moscow, because you wrote the book, we won every game against Arsenal between 1964 and 1968, and then a game between 73 and 76.
And we did win a very important one in between those dates as well.
Yes.
1972.
What happened there?
FA Cup final, Clark 1-0. Up yours, Charlie George.
Just rewinding to last season, it was hideous, wasn't it? It was that middle of that awful 3-game run right towards the back end of the season. We lost 4-0 at home to Man City, 2-0 at Arsenal, and then 3-0 at home to Chelsea when Dan James was sent off, and obviously Ayling was sent off in the 2-0.
Jesse Marsh was doing a great job.
Well, we were unbeaten in 5 before that 3-game sequence started, but in this one we were 2-0 down inside 10 minutes. It was Nketiah with both goals, and then Ayling got sent off after 27 and the world collapsed. We were like, all right, forget it.
It felt like we were down, didn't it, this day, more or less. It was one of those where you went, everything's going wrong. Stuart Dallas is broken. Luke Ayling's banned. All the most reliable bits of our team from the previous few years, gone.
But you didn't expect Diego Llorente to pop up and restore some hope, did you, when he scored?
No, it feels like both those and Arsenal have changed quite a lot since that day. Probably Arsenal more than us.
Divergent paths, slightly. Although we've been on a similar path, they've kind of just gone off in the other direction and done very well.
Yeah, we stopped having players sent off in like the first half of every game. That's been a big improvement because it was the aggression was the big thing at this point, and we ended up Stuart Dallas's leg exploding, Ayling getting sent off, and Dan James getting sent off for no reason. I remember it was the whole Jackie Harrison, it's got to be a son of a bitch on the pitch thing. And he absolutely wallops through one player in the first 20 minutes of the next match, and then was like, I really don't like doing that. You could tell it wasn't his thing.
Someone?
Yeah.
Well, that sequence of 3 games was, we dropped into the bottom 3 off the back of that, and that's when both Burnley and Everton, we'd played 36 and they'd both played 35, and they were both above us at that point, and we thought, we're toast here.
That Chelsea game was dark, wasn't it?
It was.
The Arsenal one was more just like bewildering how we could be. The Arsenal one was also where Jackie Harrison came out afterwards, so we conceded. What time was the first goal?
What, against Arsenal?
Yeah.
It was about 5 minutes. I think it was like 5 and 10, I think.
We were 2-0 down in 10 minutes, and then the interviewer after the game was like, Jack, what did obviously a bad start. What went wrong? He's like, oh, well, Jesse prepared us really well. He was showing us a quote from Gandhi before the game.
Oh, was that this
Don't
one?
know what happened. Yeah, and it's so that was why it became such a thing, is because instead of saying, yeah, he showed us a quote from Gandhi before the game, and we went and we scored 3 in the first 10 minutes, rode it out to a 7-0 win. It was, no, it's exactly what precipitated conceding 2 in the first 10 and then Ayling. That tackle was just, Ayling's done, I love Luke Ayling because he's done so many great things for us, but that tackle was just one of the stupidest contributions to Leeds United's cause you could imagine. We didn't need the ban.
Actually,
we didn't need going down to
it felt like it might be the last thing he ever did for us as well.
Yeah.
For a point, because you thought, well, he's not getting any younger, probably looking at bringing in a new right back. Maybe he'll move on in summer. But here he still is.
And he's better
Redeemed.
than ever. So
Redeemed.
It's proof that anybody can come back. But yeah, these were bad times.
Although the irony here is that, going back into this season, hopping in the DeLorean and all that, we lost 1-0 and we absolutely hammered them all game.
Yeah, DeLorean probably wouldn't work at this game because you need electricity.
And what was the
This
problem
was
there?
the one where we had the big power cut at the start, so everybody's DeLorean
And it
stopped working.
It rebooted VAR, didn't it? And everyone had to wait for Hawkeye to come back up for the goal line decision system and all that.
Isn't Hawkeye a character in the A-Team?
I don't know. It's one of the Avengers, I think, isn't he? There's about
Probably
1,000 of them, yeah.
As long as they were there, it was fine. We had to wait for them to come back.
Anyway, yeah, so we were very unlucky not to get something from that game. We out-XG'd them. Kings of XG, you'll never sing that.
Their goal was from the Rodrigo madness, wasn't it? Where he sort of cut inside and hit a long arcing ball back towards
Pascal.
his own goal.
Was it not the blind pass? Yeah, is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, it was very strange.
Just inside his own half, facing his own goal, and he decided to try and boot a cross-field pass to Pascal Strauch, who was absolutely no idea this was coming. And even, I think it was so weird that if you're in the big sexy Pirates position, you'll have been looking at that ball and going, nah, this is an optical illusion.
He's not going to... Oh, he's done...
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, even then, I'd imagine it like coming close and go, this can't be real. The sun must be in my eyes. It'll be going that way. And then they scored.
Yes, they did score. And then there was the Bamford penalty, of course, as well.
And the Bamford disallowed goal, which was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Of course,
where he was adjudged to have pushed... it was Gabriel, wasn't it? I think he was quite a big man. And I think he sort of put his forearm on his back at one point.
And Gabriel went down like a shit house.
It was reminiscent of the goal disallowed at Fulham, actually, where you look at it and you think, that's not really much, that's not enough of a push. They've been given many a time of these things, but because the defender makes an absolute meal of it.
It's funny, isn't it, how you look back on moments changing the destiny of how a team gets on in a particular season. If Bamford had put that penalty in, it was a Saliba handball, was it?
Yeah.
If he'd put that in, I suspect we'd have won that game. The momentum would have swung hugely in our favour. And if you chalk up a win against Arsenal, does Jesse stay in his job? Further down the line, you wonder.
The alternative is the missing that penalty and then getting the second chance with the one right at the end in stoppage time, and missing that one as well. That's probably how I saw this game.
Of course, and you forget that
turning out.
VAR actually overturned so Gabriel got sent off, and then was a penalty.
It was a penalty to us and a red card. But then which fair enough, did happen. Bamford shoved him over basically before. I think he should have been stuck with the red card still because he definitely tried to kick him out.
Out
so it should have been not a penalty, but still a red card probably. But anyway, so ref undid it all.
So VAR, which needed to be rebooted in the end,
fully DeLorean the whole thing. They were just like, let's just go back 5 minutes before
Crikey.
Bamford and Gabriel did anything.
Do they rewind? And the crowd said, "Bob, selector."
You needed to be going for a Gabriel joke at this point, something about
out of reach, dreams,
those kind of things.
Anyway,
this game though, we'll just win it.
Well, I think we gave them probably the toughest test of the season, and they're going to win the league this season, aren't they? We are not, I don't think.
Are they though?
I think they will. They're 8 points clear now. All right, Man City have got a game in hand. They've got some tough fixtures coming up, but
it's just because it's Arsenal. I kind of expect them to drop at some point, but I have been saying that for 28 games or so.
It's going to start on April the 1st. That's when.
I mean, is losing at home to us is the sort of result that can completely blow up your season because everyone just would lose their mind after it.
If there is some hope for us in this game, it is that they have been riding their... they won't say it's luck, they'll say it's resilience. But the game away to Aston Villa, when they had to score, it was 2 in stoppage time after, what was it? Emilio Martinez went up trying to win the thing and they scored 4th and Emery was all unhappy. But that was very late to come back. And then going 2-0 down to Bournemouth and needing that 97th minute winner the other week. They've probably had it a little bit easier since then, just beating Fulham and Palace all over the place.
I mean, Everton beat them as well.
But shouldn't have done. I mean, did they not hammer Everton that day?
I don't think it was...
Or am I thinking of the Newcastle game?
No,
The Newcastle
Everton
game
competed fairly well with them, which should give us hope because we look a lot more pragmatic under Javi. I think he will set us up to probably sit off a bit in slightly the same way we did against Brighton.
Yeah.
And there are signs that they are a bit worse against the worst teams. 1-1 with Southampton, 1-1 with Brentford, and then losing to Everton, having to come from behind against Bournemouth. So only 1-0 against Leicester. So if you kind of put them up against garbage like us, they do seem to have a harder time of it. They did. I mean, admittedly, they beat Forest 5-0, but
I mean, it is worth saying they've only dropped 7 points at home this season. And
Forest didn't have Andre Ayew at that point, so they weren't the team that they are today.
they've only dropped 15 points all season, 7 at home, 8 away. I mean, they're pretty good.
I mean, I'm saying I keep expecting their results to drop. I will stress, I don't think it'll be this weekend. I think they'll beat us.
Yeah. Normally, traditionally, 13 years we've been relying on WhoScored.com for their statistical breakdown of an opposition team's strengths and weaknesses. I just don't want to look at this.
Well,
I just can't deal with it.
Spin all the way down to the bottom of that particular graphic there, Moscow, and just read out what it says at the bottom.
Which bottom?
Well, it's that strengths, weaknesses, and styles. I'll read it. I'll calculate it from statistics of each player's last 2 seasons.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a 2-season sample, so you can ignore it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, they were fine last year as well. I don't know what Arsenal fans were ever worrying about. So it was that thing of, the 5th, they're terrible. Let's burn the stadium down. This is awful. It's like, actually, it'd be great if it was anybody else. And they're a funny bunch in that respect, the way they've kind of held the nerve with Arteta and let him just make their players who were already pretty good loads better. Seems to have been the way they've gone about it, and just like not listen to Arsenal fans TV, let them go crazy in a box, and then just like, right, fine, but we're keeping Arteta anyway.
You've got a few injuries as well. Like Partey was away with Ghana, managed by, is it Chris Huhn who's managing Ghana at the minute?
Is it?
I think so, yeah. He was away, needed treatment while he was away with Ghana this time. So
Shouldn't be playing anyway.
no, could weaken their midfield. El Neni, I can't say the word that's got too many vowels in it. El
I don't
Neni
think that's
and-
isn't he El Helni? Or is this a misspelling mistake?
Anyway, him and Tomiyasu they're out. Saliba potentially out, and Nketiah's been injured recently as well. So they've been lacking options up front because Trossard's been playing up front. So that what I'm saying is they can't score, and we can.
Trossard's been a clever signing, though, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
the annoying thing. There's kind of, I was thinking about their team because they're not like it's not like a classic bought loads of like top level players thing. It's been gradually getting players like, I mean, Ben White was expensive, but it's not a Casemiro signing. You've not bought him from Real Madrid, you bought him from Brighton. And players like, because I think that's where that idea that they still might not win the league relies on the idea that surely Eddie Nketiah ain't winning the league. We had him on loan, and he was he's never, I've not watched him in great detail, but I've never seen him look particularly loads better than he was for us, and yet somehow he's playing well enough for Arsenal to win the Premier League. And Martinelli, and granted, Xhaka has been like an absolute. They've hated him for 5 years. How is he suddenly going to be the linchpin of a Premier League title? So there's lots of.
They're kind of just a good,
and Trossard as well.
kind of just a good team, aren't they? They've just
Yeah.
assembled a good team gradually and steadily and carefully.
And let Arteta train them to make them better and work together as a team. And that's where Trossard has been like a clever signing of just like gettable from Brighton, because it's a step up to Arsenal, but not ridiculously expensive, and just going like, yeah, he will be good for us, and it works, and it's fine. It's not a big kind of.
It just shows you the value, doesn't it, of having just good players in every position is about the size of it, even if it's slightly unglamorous.
Saka, Martinelli, and Odegaard are really good as well. As an attacking three, I think I think Saka's brilliant.
I guess that's
he kind of annoys me having to like him so much, generally speaking.
Saka's come through their youth system. He's kind of a separate category, but Odegaard is a good example.
He's good.
I was thinking of it in relating to the Victor Orta broken toys thing, because they've kind of done that with successfully, because Odegaard completely lost his way at Real Madrid. He was a 16-year-old. He was wasn't he the most expensive 16-year-old at some point? So he's basically like Junior Firpo, but he's worked. And Gabriel Jesus.
I'm not sure Junior Firpo was a world record transfer at 16.
But he went to Barcelona, didn't he? And was like, and you're taking him away from a top Champions League club because it's not worked. And Gabriel Jesus being let go by Manchester City, admittedly, Haaland is kind of a big influence there. But when you're being, normally you would think, oh, well, that player's on the slide, they're dropping down, but you pick him up and you put him into Arsenal's team, and then you can go and win a title with another club. And it's kind of, there's a bit of cleverness in the way that they've done that, which is kind of
Edu is a bit responsible.
Yeah, and it's our aims of like picking up a Firpo from Barcelona and picking up Marc Roca from Bayern Munich is kind of like trying to do that same thing of like, oh, well, they're a little bit on the downslope, but I guess it's the difference between we're paying £5 million for a player or 15 for a player, and they're paying £40 million for a player who's on the slide.
It's funny, isn't it? Like Trossard, what was he, 27? And you're saying like he wasn't all that much money. Isn't football just gone mad when you frame it around that?
It's a disgrace.
Do you want my other second exciting fact of the day?
Go on then.
So a friend of mine has a relative who was sat with a Premier League lines person this week. One of the top level teams. You know, they send them around in teams that generally officiate together so they know each other. And their mannerisms, apparently in refereeing circles, Martinelli is known as Slippy Boots.
Oh, there you go.
Do they sing it to the tune of Kinky Boots?
Yes.
That sounds terrible. I don't want to think of any Premier League officials singing any variation of Kinky Boots whatsoever, or wearing them.
Indeed. So heading into this weekend then, 538.com, who run their algorithm, suggests that Arsenal have got 74% chance of winning, us 10%, 1 in 10, and the draw 16%. I'm quite happy to go with the Leeds 10%.
Yeah, I would say so as well.
Elsewhere this weekend, the pertinent games, you've got Bournemouth, Fulham, also happening on Saturday. Palace, Leicester, interesting. Forest, Wolves.
Did you see the pictures of Roy Hodgson back at training?
Your nan.
I mean, I know he is old, but like he looks really old. He's only in his mid-70s.
Maybe that's why he needs to go back to work.
My grand's 92 and she looks younger than him.
Maybe work is what was keeping him young.
Yeah, well, if you look at Watford last year, I'm not sure it was. Didn't look to be helping him.
Sunday fixtures, you got West Ham, Southampton, and then Everton playing Spurs on Monday, which then inconveniently sort of rolls round into the midweek games when we face Forest, and you got Bournemouth, Brighton on Tuesday. We'll sort of preview these. I think starting next week.
Tell you what, by Thursday I'll be looking back wistfully on this international break. This looks fucking relentless and horrible.
I'm going to try not to do what I did last year, which was end up watching Burnley and Everton games, because it just stressed me out unnecessarily. Just check the full-time result.
It was sort of fun last year, though, because Lampard was doing such a bad job. This year, there's not as much humour in Dyche. Even if they lose a game, it's still just like, well, we'll win the next one.
I had a pint in the Royal Dyche the other day.
Is that in Burnley?
It is in Burnley. I went to do...
Was it called that before he went there?
I don't believe so, no. But yeah, I went there for testing some of the walk that we're doing in summer. So I had a night in Burnley, and I thought, well, I've got to go for a pint in the Royal Dyche.
A night in Burnley.
And I can say it was a dreadful pint. It tasted entirely of vinegar, but I didn't feel I could say anything about it because of the way it was.
What would you have done if you were to complain in the Royal Dyche?
I'd have said, this is not very nice, thank you.
But they need to hear a voice that they can recognise.
You don't do that in there.
You don't?
No.
Why? But what would it sound like if you did?
There's nonsense. You clean your pipes.
Clean your pipes.
Clean your pipes. It did have 5 Jaeger bombs for £5 though, which was good.
That feels like good value.
Yeah.
It's out of a bottle as well. You're on safer grounds.
Yeah, I wish I'd gone for a bottle, but never mind. But I've been in though.
Although is it the sort of place where you could order a bottled ale?
Do you have any craft ale?
I'm trying to think what they had.
What did you get? What was your pint?
Some local ale type stuff.
Right.
A pint of Dyche
I
gravel?
think I might have been the first person who had one in about 6 years, judging by the taste of it. Or maybe that's what it's meant to taste of.
How much was your pint?
It was cheap, £2.50.
That is cheap for a pint these days. Because Centre of Leeds, you're looking at £7 for a pint now, aren't you?
Yeah, I went to 3 places in Burnley, and £3 was the most I paid for a pint. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking of moving there. To be honest, it's quite good.
And how was your night in Burnley? Was it good?
Yeah, it was all right. The first 2 pubs were fairly decent, and then I sort of knew that the Royal Dyche was going to be the way it was.
Was it sort of a bit of a you walk in, the piano stops, that kind of?
Well, it was the England game was on, but it was just very quiet and a bit sad.
I imagine there'd be a lot of England flags in Burnley.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, Patriots.
Yep. Anyway, we got sidetracked there. I mean, this weekend, this round of games, this week, generally, it feels like we've just kind of got to get to the other side of it and see where we are.
We've just got to win all the games.
Yeah.
All of them, every single one.
It'd be good if we beat Arsenal. It'd be great if we got a point.
Because the other fixtures aren't really helpful in like offering like Palace versus Leicester.
We just need a load of draws, don't we, in those games, ideally.
Forest against Wolves. They're both teams that you kind of want to get down into it. West Ham and Southampton. If one of them beats the other, it's not. Either result will make us nervous. So draws all around. Brighton can beat Bournemouth. That would help, and they definitely can. Villa can beat Leicester. It gets a bit easier once we're into Tuesday and Wednesday. Newcastle will beat West Ham. That'll be helpful. But I think so it's sort of the weekend is these games are not good.
What if Javi Grassi is brilliant and we win?
Well, he is brilliant, but I don't know if he's this brilliant.
But imagine if we won. Imagine if we went there and bloody won.
Well, and then Forest come to Elland Road on Tuesday, and I think we know what's coming from that point on. I think I had that with who did we play after Arsenal earlier in the season? Because we certainly didn't win because we never fucking won.
No, because I remember the Arsenal game.
It was Leicester, wasn't it? And we were awful.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think it might have been straight after the game in the match ball saying, because we were that brilliant against Arsenal. And it was like a great performance and we should have won and really enjoyed the game. It was very, it was one of the times when what Jesse Marsh was trying to do actually came together and you're like, okay, there is something in this that you can get behind and believe in. But we put so much effort in. We went to Leicester and we were awful. And I thought, we've just used up all our good performance and all our energy on getting beat by Arsenal. So now we'll go to Filbert Street and get
Filbert Street
and get redirected to the correct stadium.
The Crisp Bowl.
Yeah, after because we played Palace. And
it was Palace on the 9th, then we lost to Arsenal on the 16th, Leicester on the 20th, and then Fulham at home on the 23rd.
We were very down after the Palace game and thinking maybe it wasn't working with Marsh already. But then we went to Arsenal. I was like, no, I'm pleased. Even though we've lost, I'm perfectly happy with it because I feel like not everything needs putting in the bin. And then a few days later, it was like, yeah, put it in the bin.
Yeah. Well,
actually, we could just get rid of him.
If you look at those last 3 games in that losing sequence, the Arsenal, Leicester, and Fulham games, we lost 3 games in a week. And then we went to Liverpool and won, and then got the last-minute Hail Mary against Bournemouth. So saved his job.
What a ridiculously long season it's been. I know this point's been made this week when people have been retweeting the Conte Tuchel handshake thing. People going, that was this season.
Yeah.
But it's because we've had 2 massive breaks in the middle of it. It's just going on far too long.
Well, it'll all be over in 9. This time in 9 weeks, we'll be sat here scratching our arses, going, "Oh, come on, bring it back."
What we're going to do now?
Yeah.
Try to think of something to do podcasts about for 2 months.
So we probably won't get anything out of this, but just imagine if we did. And again, it's important to stress the season ain't going to be defined by what happens this weekend, is it? There are winnable games coming up, and let's hope we do.
There's a double Leeds United incentive here as well, because it's not just about getting points for ourselves; it's about ruining it for someone else, which I think we do specialise in sometimes.
You're thinking of the TSB guide that's being...
It's already out, but we're recording it after this.
Yeah, for all the people who may not have listened to it, they might have gone, "Oh, that sounds dead boring. I'm not listening to those wankers talking about that rubbish." No, correct. Those wankers are not talking about rubbish.
Yes, it's us needlessly beating Arsenal to hand scum the title just because we could.
In 1999.
So yeah, it's a good game. Watched it all yesterday. It was quite enjoyable.
Good podcast as well, despite us.
Not having done it yet.
Not having done it yet, I can tell it's going to be good. Listen to it.
Did it feel good to you?
It was a fun game, and it'll be a fun podcast.
It was, wasn't it?
Or it was a fun podcast.
And it was
if you've listened
actually.
to
It was actually the day where spoiling someone else's fun kind of trumped anything else, wasn't it? Which is what we're really good at Leeds, I think.
Yeah, so we'll
do it there. We should do that here.
We'll mainly try and spoil Arsenal's fun. We'll focus on that, but then a side result will be us also getting 3 points.
Yeah, and do you know what? It'd be very Leedsy, wouldn't it, to have injured players? All our best players are injured.
Have we got one in us?
We've always got one in us.
Good.
Always.
Who's going to play, actually, yeah. Cooper in for Verba, probably.
Yeah, Cooper's will be back. We've got Strauch as an option too, isn't he?
Mm.
And then midfield, Archie Gray.
Time to step up.
Yeah, time to step up.
That little freeloader. Been hanging around the squad for a couple of years now. He's not done a thing.
They're just giving him a better contract, haven't they?
For nothing. Get on and score some goals, for God's sake.
And we should have an embarrassment of riches up front, even without Jonto, because Sinistera, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. We'll get 15 minutes out of him again for his season.
Yeah,
his season's over.
Obviously, I mean, it'll be a nice surprise, because I guess one of the things about Gracia is he's not going to tell us any of this before we get there, so it'll all be. I wonder if he'll even deny that Tyler Adams is injured.
Just completely gaslight everyone.
Just not
even,
sure.
Yeah, I've seen the reports. I'm not commenting.
Not until I've seen that non-invasive hamstring myself.
Yeah, it goes
non-invasively
as he's the stretcher's wheeled past with a very Tyler Adams' shape underneath the blanket. Is that? No, you didn't see that. I do not talk about injuries.
Well, there you go. Full-blown show will return in some form next week, because we've got the midweek game. It's going to be a bit previews here and there and everywhere.
Try and squeeze in a bit of Arsenal propaganda on Monday.
Any point?
Yeah.
After we've beaten them, it'll be a joy.
Yeah, exactly. People will be loving it.
We'll be calling
show.
Arteta a war criminal again.
Yes, indeed. I forgot about that. Because we've always got one in us, haven't we? We've always got one in us. So fingers crossed for that. We shall wrap it up there then. Thanks for joining us on this one. See you soon.
The Square Ball Podcast.